Well, Bruce Willis dropped in the other day.
And now Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis.
Oh, no. You are so cool, you know, you are really cool.
The man who saved the world in movies can barely recognize his own family anymore. Bruce Willis, the hero we watched jump off buildings and fight terrorists, now lives in a special care home where nurses watch him around the clock. His wife Emma recently shared something that made millions of fans cry. She thought Bruce was just becoming quiet and distant over the years. She had no idea that his brain was slowly dying from a terrible disease. What happened to the action hero who made us laugh and cheer? This story will break your heart, but it's one we all need to hear. Bruce Willis was born on March 19, 1955 in a tiny town in West Germany called Idar Oberstein. His dad was an American soldier who stayed in Germany after the war ended, and his mom was a German woman from a place called Kassel. From the moment he was born, Bruce lived in two different worlds. He grew up on a military base, surrounded by reminders of war, caught between American rules and German traditions. But when Bruce was only 2 years old, his whole world flipped upside down. In 1957, his father left the army and packed up the entire family to move across the ocean to New Jersey. Just like that, Bruce went from being the little boy in Germany to just another kid in a tough American neighborhood filled with factory workers and families trying to make ends meet. His father worked hard with metal, and his mother took whatever small jobs she could find at local banks. Money was tight, and Bruce felt like he didn't belong anywhere. He wasn't fully German anymore, but he didn't feel fully American either. Then, as the 1960s began, something happened that would haunt him for years. When Bruce was about 6 years old, he developed a really bad stutter. Words would get stuck in his throat like they were trapped. He would open his mouth to speak, and nothing would come out right. The other kids at school were cruel. They laughed at him and gave him a horrible nickname. They called him Buck Buck. Bruce tried to fight back with his fists, swinging at anyone who made fun of him. But the shame of not being able to speak clearly crushed him inside. Sometimes it would take him several minutes just to finish one simple sentence. His confidence was completely destroyed. By the time Bruce turned 10 years old, going to school felt like walking into a war zone every single day. The stutter didn't just hurt his feelings, it made him feel completely alone. High school could have been the end of everything for him. He started skipping classes just to avoid being called on by teachers. He pulled pranks and caused trouble, hoping people would pay attention to that instead of how he talked. But then one day in the early 1970s, when he was about 15 years old, Bruce took a chance that changed his entire life. He joined the drama club at school, and something completely unbelievable happened. The second he stepped onto that stage and started reading lines from a script, his stutter vanished. It was like magic had happened right there in front of everyone. He could speak smoothly, clearly, without any fear at all. For the first time in his life, people actually listened to what he had to say. The teachers couldn't believe their eyes. Bruce realized something incredible. When he pretended to be someone else, the words flowed freely. Acting gave him back the voice he thought he had lost forever. That one discovery changed the entire path of his life. By 1973, Bruce had become the student council president. Even though some kids still tried to make fun of him, he didn't care anymore. He had found something that made him feel truly alive. And in 1975, while Bruce was studying theater at Montclair State University, two amazing professors helped him even more by giving him special speech therapy. But by 1977, Bruce was completely tired of sitting in classrooms. He dropped out of college and moved straight to New York City, determined to chase his dream no matter what it took. With no money in his pockets and no connections to help him, Bruce worked incredibly long hours as a bartender just to pay for food and rent. Sometimes he had to crash on friends' couches or squeeze into tiny apartments with way too many roommates. But he made people laugh wherever he went. He skated to work on roller skates. He played the harmonica for tips from customers. He basically turned the bar into his own personal stage. Those years were messy and really hard. Bruce faced over 100 rejections from casting directors in just his first year. But little by little, he started landing small roles in off-Broadway shows. His very first real acting part came in 1977 in a play called Heaven and Earth. Even though the money was terrible and the rejection was constant, he refused to give up. Sometimes when things got really bad, he even had to sleep on park benches. But people slowly started to notice this young guy with incredible energy. He got small parts in commercials, tiny roles in movies, and eventually in 1880, he got a brief scene with the legendary Frank Sinatra. But one night while he was working behind the bar, Bruce got into a serious fight while trying to protect someone from getting hurt. His nose was broken really badly. He had to get emergency surgery right away. The doctors warned him that the injury might permanently damage his voice, but thankfully he recovered. He came back even tougher than before. The scar stayed on his face, and it actually gave him a certain rough edge that would help him later. Back then, absolutely nobody knew that this struggling bartender would one day become one of the biggest action stars in the entire world. But in those small, cramped bars all across New York City, Bruce was building something way stronger than fame. He was building real friendships that would last for decades. He met John Goodman behind the counter at a place called Chelsea Central, and together they performed wild, improvised plays that left small crowds completely stunned. They were totally broke, earning just a few dollars each week, but the passion they had was absolutely real. They worked without any scripts at all. They shouted and cried and threw themselves into every single moment. These raw, honest performances sharpened Bruce's timing and gave him the explosive energy that would one day light up movie screens around the world. Then in 1985, everything changed in the blink of an eye. Bruce walked into an audition for a brand new TV show called Moonlighting. About 3,000 actors wanted that same role, including radio stars and professionally trained performers with fancy degrees. ABC rejected Bruce 11 different times, but he came back one final time with a completely shaved head, earrings, and an attitude that simply couldn't be ignored. He made up his own lines on the spot and made all the producers laugh out loud. Sue, Denley, this outsider who used to stutter, was the exact person they wanted. Moonlighting aired on March 3rd, 1985, and Bruce Willis became a star, literally overnight. The show was chaotic and incredibly expensive to make. It took twice as long to film as most normal shows. Episodes ran 120 pages long instead of the usual 40 or 50. But Bruce's charm, speed, and unpredictability made it a total sensation with audiences. However, he clashed constantly with his co-star Sybil Shepherd. By 1986, the tensions on set were boiling over. They argued loudly, snapped at each other right before filming scenes, and sometimes they completely refused to speak when the cameras weren't rolling. The pressure got so incredibly bad that Bruce actually collapsed from pure exhaustion in 1988 and had to be rushed to the hospital. Scripts were constantly delayed, ratings started to dip, but somehow the fire between them kept fans completely hooked. Behind the scenes, Bruce was burning out fast, but in front of the camera, he was absolutely magnetic and impossible to look away from. While all of this craziness was happening, Bruce shocked everyone by releasing a music album called The Return of Bruno in January 1987. Nobody expected a TV star to top the music charts, but he actually did it. The album went gold by selling 500,000 copies. It even hit number 2 in the United Kingdom. Music critics rolled their eyes and made fun of him, but his fans didn't care at all. Bruce sang alongside soul music legends and turned it into something truly unforgettable. It was strange, bold, and fun, just like him. But the grinding schedule was taking a serious toll on his body and mind. Filming Moonlighting episodes that each cost over $1 million to produce, Bruce was being pushed right to the edge. His co-star's pregnancy in 1987 and caused even more delays, and a major writer's strike in 1988 nearly shut the entire show down for good. On May 14, 1989, Moonlighting finally ended after 5 seasons. Bruce had given that show absolutely everything he had. By then, his name was already echoing loudly through Hollywood. His TV salary had skyrocketed to $50,000 per episode, which was a giant leap from the $1,500 gigs he had started with. At that time, Bruce Willis wasn't supposed to be an action star at all. He was mostly known as the charming, funny guy from that TV show, and nobody expected him to land the lead role in a huge action film. But in a strange twist of fate, a script called Die Hard was making its way through Hollywood in the late 1980s. Big names like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone had already turned it down. Even Frank Sinatra was asked to do it, since the story was technically connected to something he had starred in decades earlier. He passed on it too. And then completely out of nowhere, Bruce Willis got the offer. What shocked everyone in the industry wasn't just that he was chosen, but that the studio was willing to pay him $5 million. That was the kind of money usually reserved for massive superstars like Dustin Hoffman or Robert Redford. People in Hollywood thought the studio executives had completely lost their minds. Filming began in late 1987, and most of it was shot inside Fox Plaza in Los Angeles. By the time the movie was released on July 15, 1988, nobody had any idea it would explode the way it did. Die Hard made over $140 million worldwide and turned Bruce Willis into a full-blown action hero overnight. But there was a serious price to pay. During one of the many explosive stunts, a really loud detonation went off way too close to him, causing permanent partial hearing loss in his left ear. He kept it quiet at the time so that production wouldn't be interrupted. But years later, it was revealed that the damage never fully healed, and it became part of the health problems that followed him into the 2000s and beyond. Still, that rough-edged, relatable energy he brought to the character of John McClane changed action movies forever. He didn't look like a superhero with giant muscles. He looked like a regular guy caught in an impossible situation, and people absolutely loved him for it. Just 1 year later, Bruce did something nobody expected at all. He signed on to be the voice of a talking baby in a comedy movie called Look Who's Talking. It sounded like a complete joke, but the surprise wasn't just the weird idea. It was how much money he earned. For just 4 days of voice recording work, he took home $10 million. The reason was a really smart deal that gave him a big share of the profits. The movie itself was made for under $10 million, but it ended up making almost $300 million worldwide. His voice, full of charm and sarcasm, became a huge hit with families everywhere. The movie turned into a franchise, and he got another $10 million for the sequel. Everyone in Hollywood started realizing that Bruce wasn't just lucky. He was smart about business too. His personal life during this time was also making big headlines. Back in 1987, Bruce met the actress Demi Moore in July at a movie screening while she was actually still engaged to someone else. But just 4 months later, on November 21, 1987, Bruce and Demi got married in Las Vegas. Demi later said the wedding wasn't even planned at all. They were on their way to go gambling when Bruce just randomly suggested they get married right then and there. A month later, they had a proper ceremony with about 100 guests, including the musician Little Richard as the person who married them. The sudden marriage cost less than $1,000, but it marked the beginning of one of Hollywood's most powerful relationships. People gossiped that Demi was already pregnant before the wedding, but their first daughter, Rumor, was born exactly 9 months later in August 1988. Bruce and Demi became parents to 3 beautiful daughters. Rumor was born in 1988, Scout arrived in 1991, and Tallulah came in 1994. They tried really hard to balance their movie careers with family life by taking turns with roles, but fame brought a lot of stress into their home. Demi earned a record-breaking $12.5 million for the movie Striptease in 1996, but rumors of affairs began to surround both of them. Bruce was linked to models, and Demi to her co-stars. In 1995, Bruce reportedly stormed off a film set after a big argument. Even though they stayed together publicly and smiled for cameras, the damage was already growing behind the scenes. In 1998, after 11 years of marriage, Bruce and Demi separated. Their divorce was finalized in October 2000. The split looked peaceful on the surface, but they fought behind closed doors over their $200 million fortune. Bruce ended up paying Demi up to $90 million, making it one of the most expensive Hollywood divorces ever. They also had to work out custody arrangements for their 3 daughters. Bruce told Rolling Stone magazine that they stayed friends for the sake of their kids, but sources said it definitely wasn't easy at first. Surprisingly, though, the two actually stayed close even after the divorce papers were signed. Demi was present at Bruce's second wedding in 2009 when he married Emma Hemming. And in 2019, when Bruce and Emma renewed their vows, Demi joined the entire family celebration. They even spent the 2020 lockdown together in Idaho, with all the kids, and shared happy photos online. Demi later supported Bruce after his diagnosis in 2022, and continued to be there when the news got worse in 2023. The blended family stayed incredibly strong, showing the entire world that love doesn't always have to end just because a marriage does. Bruce kept making movies throughout the 2000s, but something strange started happening around 2015. He began appearing in a flood of really low-budget action movies that went straight to video instead of theaters. One of them was called Vice, where he played the owner of a resort filled with robot-like androids. Critics absolutely hated it. Released in January, it barely made any money, and reviewers slammed it for being dull and lazy. Behind the scenes, people in Hollywood started noticing that Bruce was doing up to 5 of these types of films every single year. His performances felt hollow and empty. That special spark he used to have was clearly fading away. And when his family revealed in March 2022 that Bruce had been struggling with a brain condition called aphasia, everything suddenly made sense. These weren't passion projects anymore. They were warning signs. Something was seriously wrong, and it had been happening for years. In March 2022, everything changed for Bruce and his family. They released a public statement saying that Bruce had been diagnosed with aphasia, a condition that affects your ability to speak and understand language, and he was stepping away from acting immediately. He was 67 years old. The news hit his fans incredibly hard. Suddenly, all those strange performances in recent films made complete sense. He had been struggling with speech for a while, sometimes relying on earpieces to hear his lines, or even using body doubles for certain scenes. Some directors had to completely shoot around his confusion and memory problems. For an actor who had once commanded the entire screen with just one look or one line, it was absolutely heartbreaking to watch. By February 2023, things got even worse. Doctors confirmed that his condition had progressed into something called frontotemporal dementia, which is a rare and incurable disease that slowly strips away your personality, your language, and your ability to move. Emma later said she honestly thought Bruce had just become quiet and distant over the years. She figured maybe it was stress or just getting older. But it wasn't him pulling away. It was the disease stealing him piece by piece. His once lively charm began to completely fade. His movements got slower. He barely spoke anymore. The man who made millions laugh in movies was disappearing right in front of his family's eyes. On August 15, 2025, Bruce moved into a special care home not far from where his family lives, but he's no longer in their main house. Emma called it the absolute hardest decision of her entire life. Their 2 young daughters, Mabel and Evelyn, were just 13 and 11 years old at the time. Keeping them from witnessing the worst parts of their father's decline became her top priority as a mother. The new care home has medical staff available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it costs more than 200 batons, $1,000, every single year. The family still visits him often, sharing meals and trying to find moments of laughter when they can. But Emma admitted publicly that it feels like their entire world has been completely shattered into pieces. By the middle of 2025, Bruce could no longer speak at all. The man who once shouted his lines over massive explosions in Die Hard now communicates only with simple gestures and very rare facial expressions. And yet, something beautiful still happens sometimes. Just sometimes, completely out of nowhere, he will laugh. That same big, booming, unmistakable laugh that made him famous. Or he'll hear an old song from his music album from 1987, and something will suddenly light up in his eyes for just a moment. Those tiny moments, maybe just a few each week, are absolutely priceless to his family. but they're also a painful reminder of what's been lost. One of Hollywood's greatest voices, a voice that made us feel safe in action movies and made us laugh in comedies, has now gone completely quiet. This story isn't just about a celebrity getting sick. It's about a man who fought his entire life to find his voice, only to have it stolen away by a disease he couldn't fight. Bruce Willis went from being a kid who couldn't speak without stuttering to becoming one of the biggest movie stars on the planet, to now living in a care home where he can't speak at all. It's a reminder that life can be cruel and unfair, even to our heroes. But it's also a reminder of something beautiful. Through all of this pain, Bruce's family has stayed together. His ex-wife Demi and his current wife Emma have both been there, supporting him and each other. His 5 daughters visit him and cherish every small moment they get. That's the real story here. Not just the tragedy of losing someone to dementia, but the power of love and family that refuses to give up. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button right now. Share this video with anyone who grew up watching Bruce Willis save the day in movies. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another story like this. Bruce Willis gave us decades of entertainment, laughter, and unforgettable moments. The least we can do is remember him not just for what he's lost, but for everything he gave us. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.